What's going on, everybody? Joe at the Big Sky Model Workshop, dropping in a quick Saturday update. I meant to do this last night as a progress update, but it got late. I thought, we'll do it here in the morning. It is Saturday morning. It's still brisk and chilly outside, but we're going to get a little bit of stuff done here before I go outside and hang some Christmas lights. Thought I'd show you where we've gotten on this Nova. This is the buddy build that I'm doing with Shaggy over at Shaggy's Awesome Garage. Make sure you guys go check out his channel if you haven't already. We're building a pair of street stocks out of MPC's 1979 Chevy Nova kit. So last time I was gathering pieces and getting everything kind of sorted out. And now we've started getting into cutting and fitting things together and kind of making some progress. If you've watched Shaggy's video, and I highly recommend you do, he started with a monogram NASCAR kit, roll cage. And then Kenny over at K-Dogs did one with the AMT kit, which would work really well too. But as I explained in that video, I've got to retain a stock firewall, stock floor pan, stock front suspension, and the like. So I figured I would go with that. And I really like the way that the 1/24 scale roll cage fits inside that car. So I used the Ford version of that same kit. So the side panels are pretty close. There's a couple things that I like about it better than the GM version. And so that's what we got on roll cage. So what I've got is I have got a roll cage, this yellow one. It came out of the Alan Kowicki NASCAR combo. So I use the sides. And one of the things I like is the GM version uses an angled window net. And I had a straight up and down. So that saves me having to cut and modify a window net. So I used the sides and I narrowed the back, but this one had a cross brace in it. And when you go to try to narrow something that's going at an angle, obviously you're going to lose height and everything. So I ended up cutting that, and I ended up using some evergreen styrene rod to finish that angle, as well as do the top rails here to get the width that I wanted. I definitely still like the fact, like using this instead of another cage kit, because these door bars are correct to what we did. We had the angled out, the curved out door bars. They give you, the reason they curve them out like that is it runs tight against the door skin, and it gives you space between those door bars and your seat. If you were to take a side impact, there is room to prevent you from hopefully getting hurt. And so that's hard to duplicate scratch building. So that was definitely, so I cut the front firewall section off because it wasn't going to fit under the body the way I wanted to, and I've got that cleared. I have this set where it just sits right on top of the side rails of the factory pan. And then up front here, I've got a crossbar for the dash area and a windshield bar the way my car was set up. And the way I always did them on my other cars too was I'd run a bar here and then I'd run my expanded metal inside here on the cage to protect whatever I needed to do there. And then inside here, I added some angled bars. This bar is affectionately known as the petty bar. Petty bar is designed that in the impact, if you rolled or something, let me take this off here, I'll show you. If you were to roll, it will transmit any forces to this upper right-hand corner, which more than likely, if you're going to roll to your passenger side, and that's where the loads on the cage are going to go. It'll come back to here where everything is kind of angled and tied in. And then we've got one that runs here, and that one runs down to the corner of the cage here. That stiffens, normally it would go all the way to your frame rail, but we're just approximating. That stiffens your right front suspension. The highest loads on the car, because you're turning left, everything's pushing on that right front, so you kind of give some strength to that right front corner of the car. So I just did these with some evergreen styrene. I used a combination of, 2mm and 1.6mm rod. I know that's a little big because that should be in 1/25th scale, an inch and a millimeter. So theoretically, most of the cage is built out of 1.5 and 1 3/4. This is so minute that you're not going to really notice. So we're using basically the equivalent of 2-inch and 1.inch and 5/8, I guess, tubing in real life. So there is my main cage structure. I am plumb happy with how that went. I will clean up some of the joints here and there. I will probably use, I like to use a little bit of super glue with some hardener and make it look like a weld and kind of clean those up best I can. But there's the roll cage. Chassis pan we started working on. We had to cut the inner fender stuff completely out. So the inner fender structure on both sides is completely gone. I will probably still have to cut this piece out too. Definitely need to open it up to fit the radiator that I'm going to use. Front suspension is kit pieces, and I know it's not perfect, and it's fine. We're not building a 100% perfect scale replica. We would drive ourselves nuts and take 2 years to try to do that, only for somebody to pick it up and go, hey, that's wrong. So I know what it's going to be. You guys are going to know what it's going to be. It's going to look awesome on the shelf. If I ever take it somewhere, people will instantly know, okay, that's a dirt track car out of a Nova. Cool. Good enough for me. I'm happy. If you want to take it to the nines, that's the beauty of this hobby. There's room at the table for everybody, from a box stock to a complete scratch builder to you want every nut and bolt head, want to edit videos, want to do them guerrilla style, whatever you want to do. There's room for all of us. So you do what you want to do, but that's how we're going to do this one here. I'm pretty happy because under hood, this will all be exposed. I'll scratch build bars. So in the pictures that I had in the previous one, the underhood cage structure and some of the in-cage structure are different. I don't have pictures of the car from when I let it go. Wasn't thinking about that at the time. I was just thinking about turning that car into cash, and I didn't take pictures of all the things that I had changed on the car before I left. Underhood, I had changed bars. I had added the petty bar inside in the car there. The interior, I didn't like how the gauges and that stuff mounted, so I redid a lot of that. You guys can kind of see in that picture, there was a firewall, like tin, across the back of here. What he had done is he had made a firewall and mounted the battery right back here in the open. So I took that firewall, that piece of tin out of there because it would just whap, 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 and just drive you insane. So I took all of that out of there and just kind of cleaned and opened it up because that was what I was after. So that's where we're at on that right now. I will probably cut off these back pieces too, so I just have this main cage structure. I still need to fabricate a rear firewall, which I grabbed a piece out of one of those Nova Pro Streets and cut that down. Remember, this car is a hatchback in the kit, and so I need to convert that because mine was certainly not. So I need to convert it into sedan type and get a back, and then I will probably, because I don't have an opening trunk or anything, I will probably set it all up where the back bars for the cage are just going to glue flush to this. I mean, I don't really need to drill holes and run it through because there's nothing there to see. Speaking of that, so firewall we're going to have to still modify. Looking at the pictures, I noticed there's so much tin, the way that was covered up for the heater box and everything. Probably could use a NASCAR firewall, and it wouldn't matter. I could just sand off the coolant tank because we didn't have that, and the master cylinder, put a different master cylinder on. So I might go that route. My gauges were, I didn't have like a dash. There was a piece of tin from the front bar just over to the firewall to just kind of make like so rain couldn't get in and puddle up or anything like that. The gauges were mounted off to the side. There was a switch panel and gauges, and they were mounted kind of off to my right as you're sitting in the car. Like the gauges were right here. So if you're turning and looking over, out of a glance, you can see water temperature, and oil pressure with dummy lights. I usually didn't even look at the gauges. I was just expecting a dummy light. It had a tack. That was there. I never looked at it. So we'll put those things back in kind of an approximation of where I had them. I still had them off to that right side. My switches I had moved to my left because that's where I'm used to having switches and everything. So we'll get that there. I wish I had pictures of that. I apologize. But you guys will kind of get the gist of what we had going on. Onto the body. So when I first got the car, it had a Monte Carlo nose piece on it. I had bought another Monte Carlo nose piece. That is why it had the bars like it did for the front bumper. Instead of putting a stock bumper on it, it had the tube. That was just a back structure. So I have been messing around with that. So yes, they do not fit flush. They fit over the top just like that on purpose. They're plastic. It just makes the front of the car look cleaner. I mean, I know they fit really nice on a metric car, but we swapped them on everything. Guys that ran Fords put one of these on with a big Ford blue oval sticker in the middle of it. They're cheap. They clean up the front of the car really nice. They work as a deflector. Your hood, as you can see here, your front of your hood would slide under, and then it would set down and you'd have your pin. So you could just lift the hood. The hood was gutted to just that outer sheet of tin, and you would just pluck it off of there and out of the way. You didn't have to worry about your hood coming up because it'd be trapped underneath that plastic nose piece. So this is out of one of the Monogram NASCAR kits. I just kind of ground the inside out to fit pretty good, and that looks about right. It'll end up getting painted black because I just had a black plastic one. There's no sense usually in painting these because they are going to get scuffed and gouged and beat to heck. You're going to end up drilling the rivets out and riveting a new one on by mid-season anyway. Otherwise, we are sanding off the windshield wipers, and you can kind of see where I drilled the holes. Those holes were still there. You took off the windshield wipers, holes are still there. So we got that going on. Same thing with the door handles. Ground those off, drilled the holes where the hole and the lock would be, and the trunk as well. It's got the trunk drilled out. I cut open the taillight holes because mine were open, and so we're going to just leave that like that. The other thing I did is I'm converting this from a hatch into a sedan. So I took these lines here, are all filled with super glue. It's the first time I've ever tried that, but it's been suggested. Tim Casper actually talked about doing that on the AMC Livecast, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. And so I tried that and sanded that, and I rescribed, and I don't know if you guys can really see, I rescribed the line across the front here. So now this is opening, and I cut out the rear trim. So this looks more accurate. When it's all painted, this will look like this is just a normal open Nova sedan and not a hatch. With the bigger rear window opening, those lines should be gone now that they're filled. So that's where we're at with that. So something I wanted to show you, a little tip. When it comes to getting emblems, moldings, and things off, you can sand to your heart's content. If you're really fortunate, you've got one of those cool display sanders. I don't. Honey, Christmas idea. This little guy here is designed for doing dental work on animals. This is for like scraping plaque. And you can buy these on eBay for $1 or $2 out of the old China land. And so I have one of these. It's worked a long time. If you want to scrape mold lines, if you want to scrape emblems off, just use a light touch. This works really good for scraping those things off, and then you finish up with your sandpaper. So, little tip for you. Yeah, so that's where we're at on this. We're going to continue scratch building rear firewall, front firewall, the rest of the cage. I still need to swap in a 9-inch from the rear. I'm going to use a Monogram 9-inch. I know it's not molded open on the top, but you'll never see it. Basically, I'm going to use the kit leaf springs because they're right. And then I'm going to glue them in, cut the rear end out of the middle of it, narrow down the Monogram one, and get it fit into place where I'm happy with it. And that'll be good. And then I think I'm going to need to scratch build some rear shocks because there aren't any on that rear end. Not a huge deal. I can cut something down out of a Monogram kit and modify it or whatever. I'm not going to worry about the fronts because the way that the wheels mount on that, there's a pin that goes right through the middle of the control arm. You can't put a coil spring or a shock in there if you wanted to. And like we've said, it's not going to be 100%, and that's okay. Yeah. So we're going to work on some more body mods real quick here. Finish sanding and smoothing this down. I'm waiting for my tires to show up. The same place I ordered the wheels, he had the tires. So I ordered those because I do know I need to open up the rear wheel wells on this. I just don't know how far, and I don't want to just go hog wild, open them up to find out that I've now created a monster that I can't fill back in. Probably won't be much, but I know that those got opened up. The front wheel wells were more than enough to clear the tires and everything. Those things had huge front openings, and we didn't worry about cutting those out so much because a fender was something that could be easily replaced. If it got beat up too bad, you were just a few bolts and maybe cut a couple little welds, and you just threw another junkyard fender on, painted, decaled, and moved on. We didn't really hack those out and didn't really need to. The tires are really, I mean, they're a Hoosier. They're like a 27 or 28 inch tall tire by about 9 inches wide. Not much bigger than like a 235 60/15, which is what pure stock class around here used to let run. So in this car, going back through its history, was in fact a pure stocker first, which was gut it, cage it, run it. You couldn't run anything bigger than a 235 60/15 tire on a 15x8 racing rim. You were allowed a 6-point cage in the passenger compartment and safety gear. So this car started that way and then got modified. It wasn't purposely taken all the way down. So there are some things that are going to be reflected in that, and that's okay. What else we got going on? We got a radiator picked. We're going to try to match up a correct radiator shroud. I had a NASCAR radiator for a Ford. Well, the water outlets are in the wrong spot, so I grabbed one out of one of the Chevy kits. I have the Chevy shroud and I have the Ford shroud, and we will have to figure out which one of these is going to fit better because I did have a shroud in there, which is always a good idea to have a fan shroud to direct air where it needs to. These cars run hard for 20 laps. You don't want to melt down that engine. I think that's about it there. We'll keep plugging away on that. I won't have an update for you probably until next weekend or maybe later because we have the 72-hour build coming up on Thanksgiving, and I've got a project set aside to start working on for that. And then we'll come back to this because by then I should have my tires and wheels to finish modifying the body. Those of you who wanted to see a clear coat comparison from What Did You Buy Wednesday, stay tuned. That will be coming up later on today. I'm going to go start setting that stuff up, paint it, and let it dry while I go outside and light that up. Christmas lights up while it's still not bitter cold or 40-mile-an-hour winds. So that's what I got for the update. A little long-winded today. I apologize, but I had a lot to cover because I did a lot of stuff on this thing over the last few days. So any questions, pop them down below. I'll do my best to explain why I'm building what I'm building. Shaggy, thank you so much for doing this buddy build with me. I'm having a blast doing this. There'll be more race cars for sure. And next time I'll give you the update on the engine and transmission combo too. BCG resin, small block, and power glide. Can't go wrong. Head to the website. Check him out. He's got a stock 350 engine kit that will work perfectly, as well as multiple transmission options. Use Big Sky 10 in the discount code and save 10% on that order. With that, I'm going to get out of your hair and let you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Stay tuned later today for the clear coat comparison and, of course, for Sunday morning Model Cars and Coffee with Mr. Andre this week. So thanks for dropping by. Hope you guys had a good week, and I hope you have an awesome Saturday. God bless you, and we'll catch you on the next one. You knew it was coming.